Piocreate just reinvented how MSLA 3D printers work, but in doing that, did they forget how a 3D printer is supposed to work? Let's find out. Hey guys, CJ with Elevated Systems, and this is the Piocreate Halot X1. Now you might be wondering, who the heck is Piocreate? Well, simply put, Piocreate split off from Creality, a well-known company in the 3D printer space. They formed their own brand focused more on professional, dental-oriented resin printers. Along the way, they also acquired the consumer-focused Halot series from Creality, and this is their first attempt at producing a Halot printer under this new name. I say attempt because unfortunately, this is a prototype. I didn't know that when I agreed to review it. Piocreate explained who they were and described a printer that was supposedly just days away from launching to the public. Having reviewed Halot printers in the past, I found them to be pretty decent value. No bells and whistles, just a simple machine that does what it's supposed to do, produce good quality prints at a decent price, so I was happy to check out another one. Unfortunately, after the unit was shipped, I found out this wasn't a public launch, it was a Kickstarter campaign, and the machine I received is a final prototype. Now, I have a hard rule. I don't cover Kickstarter products. There's just too much risk they'll never come to fruition. Plus, why does an established company that already makes and sells printers need to use Kickstarter? Anyway, the printer's been sitting in my shop for a while now. Apparently, Piocreate's campaign was successful, and the Halot X1 is now available for pre-order directly from the company. I still debated reviewing this machine because it's not 100% representative of what you, the consumer, will actually get, but Piocreate did provide a working document listing all the changes planned for the final retail version, and it's essentially nothing major. The resin vat will be black, the lid will get an anti-static coating, over-the-air software updates will be enabled, the fan speed will be adjusted, and they're fixing some issues with the optional AFU module. But here's the thing, the issues I encountered that you really need to know about before placing a pre-order have nothing to do with those minor tweaks. In fact, I don't see how they can fix what I found without a total redesign. Now, because I pay attention to my audience retention stats, I know exactly what y'all want to see. First, what kind of print quality can you expect from this 16K machine? So let's start there. Bottom line, you can get beautifully detailed, high-resolution prints that are very likely to fail, or you can get reliable, successful prints that come nowhere near 16K level of detail. Why? Well, that comes down to a few key things, from the basic design of the printer to the limited print settings available. We'll get it all into that in detail, but first let's cover the specs and features. The Halot X1 is technically a 10-inch class 16K resin printer, but with an actual active screen diagonal of about 9.6 inches and a build volume of 211.68 by 118.37 by 200 millimeters, all packed into a surprisingly compact chassis measuring just 344 by 331 by 434 millimeters. It uses the same 16K, the 15,120 by 6,230 pixel LCD screen you find in pretty much every other 10-inch 16K printer on the market, likely manufactured by Aptus Display. That gives it a native XY resolution of around 14 by 19 microns. Under that screen is a 92 LED UV matrix with a measured output between 5.4 and 6.1 milliwatts per square centimeter. The resin vat is metal, locks into place with two large lever arms, and uses high-temp NaCF release film. It holds about 600 milliliters of resin. One of the standout features is the Z-axis design. The vat, light source, and LCD screen all ride up and down on dual linear rails driven by two lead screws rising up to meet a fixed build plate. And that build plate is worth a closer look. It slides into place and locks automatically with 4 actuated clamps at the start of each print. It's also a two-part design. Twist the handles on the bracket, the quick release spars pop in and out, and your finished model comes off pretty easily, no scraping or prying. On the top of the machine, you've got a 4-inch touchscreen interface, a USB Type-A port for transferring files from a thumb drive, and a USB Type-B port for direct PC connections. The Halot X1 comes in a white and orange color scheme, and the body is entirely plastic. The lid lifts up and over, but the hinges sound like they've been cranked down a little too tightly. probably to keep it from slamming shut if it's not fully raised. There's an internal power supply, and the power switch is located on the back of the machine as opposed to this nice, available, and practical spot right here. And finally, Piocreate Halot X1 is available for pre-order for $599. Now, some of the Halot X1's features work well, some seem a little pointless, and a few actually hurt the overall quality of the machine. Let's start on a positive note. First up, the build plate part removal mechanism is one of the best I've seen since the Formlabs flexible build plate. Just twist the handles, pop the quick release bars in and out, and your model is free. The downside, the build plate leaves a ridge pattern on the bottom of prints. If you're using a raft, no big deal, but if your workflow involves printing directly on the build plate, that texture might be a deal breaker. Cleaning the plate is also a bit of a chore. Wiping it down is kind of tedious due to its design, but I found that dunking the whole thing in a bucket of IPA and letting it air dry works well enough. Another plus, there's no need to screw or latch the build plate in place. It simply slides into position and is automatically clamped before the print starts. You can unlock it through the UI or manually if I need it, I guess. The printer comes factory leveled, and in fact, there's no way to manually level either the plate or the screen. While that worked fine for me, aside from one minor adhesion failure, these auto leveling or level free systems are great until they're not. And when something possibly goes out of spec, there's no way for you to fix it on this machine. I also really like the VAT latch system. The large lever arms make it quick and easy to lock the VAT down securely. The top mounted touchscreen and USB ports are another smart design choice, up high, closer to eye level, and out of the resin splash zone. Now, the UI itself wouldn't be too bad if it weren't for the slow scrolling text that drags out every interaction. It's clunky and it adds unnecessary friction to the workflow. This scrolling text is just one of the issues I found that Piocreate has said will be fixed in a future update. I do appreciate the compact size of the printer. It takes up significantly less space than most other 16K resin machines. However, with the lid fully open, you'll still need quite a bit of vertical clearance. Unfortunately, the smaller footprint was achieved by stripping out a lot of internal components, most notably to make the moving VAT mechanism possible. To keep the platform lightweight and compact, Piocreate went with a 92 LED array as the light source. That's not necessarily a problem. The most consistent and accurate printer I've tested, the Formlabs Form 4, also uses an LED matrix. But here's the thing, the Form 4 pairs that LED matrix with a dual lens matrix system, a honeycomb baffle, and a diffusion layer to collimate and evenly spread the UV light across the screen. Some printers achieve the same goal using a single cob light with a Fresnel lens. Now, it seems like the Halot X1 does nothing to collimate or diffuse the LEDs. When you look at the screen, you can clearly see every hot spot shining through, just raw overlapping beams of UV light. But once I dug deeper and disassembled the machine, under the screen, I found a plano convex lens array and a honeycomb baffle. Now, that sounds promising, but the implementation raises some concerns. The honeycomb baffle is probably okay, but most are deeper to more effectively narrow the beam spread. As far as the lens array, I'm an electronics engineer, not an optical engineer, so if anyone with optical experience wants to weigh in down in the comments, please do. But from what I can tell, these 8mm lenses with 7mm focal length just aren't doing enough to capture and redirect the diverging rays. For these 3030 LEDs with likely 1mm emitters, you typically need lenses at least 20mm in diameter with matching 20mm focal length to properly collimate the light. And to top it off, there's no diffusion layer at all. That lack of proper optical control results in inconsistent light intensity across the build plate, ranging from 5.4 to 6.1 milliwatts per square centimeter. On paper, that intensity doesn't sound extreme. Anycubic's N7 Pro hits 5.5 milliwatts, but when you combine that with poorly collimated UV light, you get noticeable light bleed and significant XY pixel bloom. You can see it in my first couple calibration prints, in which took longer than they should have because the printer also doesn't include any sort of exposure calibration matrix. I had to run each exposure test individually. And yes, I'm using Piocreate's own 16K resin, which they sent along with the printer and say is specifically formulated for this machine. The first test print looked perfect and failed at the same time. Using the built-in default settings, 1.5 seconds of exposure, the details were sharp, the measurements were spot on, exactly how I want this test to look, but the cube feature failed due to support failures, which suggest underexposure. So I bumped up the exposure to 2 seconds. This time the print finished, but now the text was bloated and XY accuracy was off by over 100 microns in some cases. The cube held on, sure, but the rest of the print was clearly overexposed. Also, an important note about the print settings, the printer has built-in exposure and print parameters, which can be helpful during calibration, especially since, again, you have to run each test one at a time. You can adjust exposure and other settings directly on the machine without needing to reslice the model, which is nice. However, by default, the printer uses those internal settings for every print. So if you sliced a file with specific settings in your slicer, you'll need to manually select the file's own parameters before printing, or else the machine will ignore them and default to its built-in settings. However, again, being a firmware issue, Piocreate has told me that will be fixed. Now, there are ways to compensate for some of the Halot X1's design flaws, but to do that, we need to talk about the software. Piocreate has its own slicer called Piocreate Box, which, as you probably guessed, is just a rebranded version of Halot Box. However, for the Halot X1, they still have Halot Box. I installed it, added the X1, however, several key settings were missing. I initially assumed it was just because of the beta version or because it's a new printer, but that's probably not the case. Piocreate also provided a beta version of Chitubox Basic that includes an official Halot X1 profile, which is what I used for this review. One way to combat the blooming is by reducing the light intensity, a setting that was missing entirely in the Halot box. Unfortunately, it turns out the machine doesn't allow the user to set PWM light intensity. I sliced a full plate test model twice, once with bottom and normal exposure intensity set to 100% and once at 80%. Both prints produced identical measured exposures. The settings in Chitubox simply don't do anything. Another potential fix for support-related failures is to tweak the Z-lift behavior. Ideally, a low, short initial lift to start peeling the release film, followed by a faster secondary lift to reach full height. But this two-stage lift isn't supported by the X1. The minimum lift height is locked at 8 millimeters. You can only increase it, and while you can reduce lift speeds, it applies to the entire 8 millimeter movement, so printing gets significantly slower. For example, I tried setting a secondary lift height and speed in the slicer, but the printer just ignored it completely. My best compromise was reducing the lift speed to 300 millimeters per hour, which is just 5 millimeters per second, and setting the normal exposure time to 1.5 seconds. With those settings, I printed a test model. The details look great and the supports didn't fail. So to assess print quality, I went ahead and loaded a full build plate with the pre-supported DM Stash miniatures I always use and know are expertly supported, and sliced them with the same settings. I saved the file to a USB stick since Wi-Fi transfer doesn't work with Chitubox yet, and started the print. Roughly 8 hours later, which is a long time for 50 micron layer heights, the print finished, or so I thought. Once I removed the supports, I found partial failures on both the large and small versions of the model. On the smaller version, the bottom of the hair and the sword hand didn't survive intact, and the dress on the larger model was, well, weird. This is the first time I've ever seen these particular model fails on any printer. Looking closely, the details also came out slightly softer compared to the same models printed on the Saturn IV Ultra 16K. Once again, we're dealing with underexposure that leads to support failure and light bleed that causes XY pixel bloat and a noticeable drop in detail. So I then dropped the lift speed even further down to 200 millimeters per minute and increased the exposure time to 1.7 seconds. This time I printed the latest Cones of Calibration version 3, and while the sword didn't fit in the skull and the cylinder didn't fit in the mug, the success pillars printed and the fail pillars failed. So I'll call that a win, as I just will be happy with the successful print at this point. For my standard test of functional parts and dimensional accuracy, I printed the ultralight mouse body. The print completed with no obvious support failures, but the parts were warped. There was a noticeable compression or deformation on the bottom of the top shell and significant layer shift on the bottom panel. The top and bottom didn't fit together at all, so the printer failed this test. For my final test, I usually print a multi-part showpiece, and for this review, I chose a Voltron model. As a control, I printed it on the Haygears Reflex RS using Blueprint Studio's one-click slice feature with just a few manual tweaks. The entire model printed perfectly on a single plate, first try. I then exported the same supported parts from Blueprint and sliced them in Chitubox for the Halot X1 using the settings I had dialed in. The result was a 100% failure. The supports failed on every single part, so I went back into Chitubox and manually oriented and supported each piece with plenty of heavy and medium supports. Still, one of the parts failed. I resupported it with even more heavy supports, printed it again, and finally got it to finish, only to discover, after all of that, none of the parts actually fit together, and it wasn't even close. Now, I could try to use shrinkage compensation to compensate for that. However, that applies globally, so will also affect supports. Now, listen, I can appreciate what Piocreate is trying to do here. The more stable movement of the vat and platform assembly does seem to have some benefits. Large, flat surfaces come out smoother with little to no evidence of Z-wobble or banding. So mechanically, parts of the system are working, but the sacrifices Piocreate made to achieve that mobile platform just don't seem to be worth it. I will concede this. I only tested one resin. I mean, it was the high detail resin Piocreate sent along, specifically formulated for this machine. That said, it's a low viscosity resin in a very pale gray color, all factors that allow for more light penetration, making especially prone to XY bloom and light bleed, particularly under a high intensity and non-collimated light source. So in a way, it may have been the worst resin to test with this printer. It's also extremely brittle, so not exactly ideal for tabletop minis or any part that needs durability. So for most of you, that's probably more than enough information to form your own opinion about the Piocreate Halot X1, but for those who need more, here are a few more things worth knowing. This printer is missing some now standard features for its class and price point. There's no adjustable feet to level the machine on an uneven surface, no built-in camera, no force sensors, and no detection system for failed prints, low resin levels, or debris in the vat. I had multiple failed prints, and not once did the machine alert me. In one case, a full raft was stuck to the bottom of the vat, and the printer happily started a new job right on top of it. There's also no built-in heater in the base configuration. Piocreate does offer an optional $120 auto feed unit, which pumps resin from their branded bottles directly into the printer and also preheats the resin. Now, depending on the ambient temperature of your workspace, this can be effective. The heat generated by the exothermic UV curing process can help maintain resin temperatures in the vat, but only if the room temp is above about 15 degrees Celsius. And frankly, a $30 baby bottle warmer does the same job without the added hassle of flushing and cleaning a pump system. Now, I do appreciate some of the innovations Piocreate introduced here. The concept behind the moving vat and platform is interesting. In some ways it works. Like I said, large flat surfaces look great with no visible Z-wobble. But overall, it feels like one step forward and several steps back. While no high-resolution resin printer released in the past year has been perfect, most at least deliver the core features we've come to expect at the consumer level. Unfortunately, Piocreate stripped too many of those away. Anyway, regardless of how this or any review shakes out, you won't find affiliate links to this printer below. That's not how I do things here. But if you found this helpful and want to support the channel, just hit that like button, consider subscribing, and feel free to flood the comments with all the reasons I'm wrong about the Halot X1. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.